Welcome back to the shop, you guys. Thanks for joining me this week. This is going to be the third bow, more like a second installment on some of the children's bows that we were making. So this was a board bow with a leather wrap on it, and then a bamboo bow built with a built-up riser, and then a cord wrap for a grip. And the final in the series, of course, do a board bow, do a bamboo bow, and then it only made sense to then do a self bow. And so this is a piece of ash that was salvaged actually from the green belt behind my house, where some boys had cut down some trees to make a fort or whatever it was. But when I came across them, I went ahead and salvaged it. Couple tree trunks, and with one I have made this particular self bow. It's a 20 pounds at 20 inches, so another good bow for a young man up the street, and it works out perfect because there's 3 of them. And so today we'll just go through the final build of this trifecta for the kids up the block. So I started with this stave by cutting it down to 52 inches. All right, and if you look down its length, it's a little bit windy. It's kind of got a natural deflex right at the grip. We may steam in a little bit of some recurve at the tips when we're nearing completion on it. But I positioned it such that the very middle of the bow is going to be on this knot, and we should have relatively clean limbs out to the tips. And we'll kind of make our riser piece, our grip in here with the knot. So here's the layout of the bow. 52 inches in length. I think I probably covered that once already. But I've got it out to even 1 inch wide tips, and just a very gradual increase in width to 1.5 inches. So it's 1.5 inches wide at the grip, or at the fades rather, and then running out to the tips of the stave at 1 inch widths. And of course, as we get along in construction, we'll take those tips down to 1/2 inch or less in the tillering process, or the peaking and tweaking piece of things. I have made my way to pretty much clean material across the entire belly there. I do have just the whisper, a little bit of a split from the original split right in here, but I think I'm going to get underneath that. I have had to narrow the width of this bow now one time, because it's just getting, it is barely bending at all, and it's pretty small dimensions already. So we're down to about 1 1/8 inches, or about 1 inch wide here. The thickness on it is getting relatively narrow or thin, so we're narrow and thin here. Gonna have to thin out this belly a little bit more and keep working on the floor tiller. All right, guys, so here's where we're at this point. I have done a lot of the gross removal in terms of initial shaping. Went ahead and kind of cut in an hourglass here at the grip, and I don't know if you can see it there. We got a fade and a fade here, and it gets a little thinner, and it's thick through the grip area right here. And smooth belly surfaces. They are faceted. I don't know if you can really see that, but the facet, of course, is starting to work down to where it's pretty much just a lenticular kind of cross section there. You can probably see it on the tip of the end of the bow here. But at this point, I'm kind of at floor tiller, so I'm starting to bend and get to the point where it's time to put in some string knocks. And so I'm going to put in some string knocks on this guy, string it, and we're going to start with the tillering in earnest. All right, so as I've been floor tillering this, it has seemed to spring back pretty quickly, but it's taking an undue amount of set just for light floor tillering. So my assessment on that is that it is not yet completely dry. So we are getting some really good crunchy shavings off of here, but I suspect that the moisture content on it is probably still over 10 or 11%, which will prevent it from having really good compression qualities. It'll just bend and stay bent. So since we've got it pretty much reduced to near final dimensions, because we are definitely near final dimensions on this one, I'm going to go ahead and let it dry some more. All right, so this bow spent the day yesterday in the front seat of my car, or just spread across the dash of my car while I worked. Didn't put up the sunscreen or anything, so gave it plenty of opportunity to drive the last bit of moisture out of the blank. And we have it now on a long string. So this is really just short long string. It's at about a 2-inch brace height is what it amounts to. And we're getting our initial bends here and start working on the tillering. It's kind of weird the way this works right through here, because the bow kind of goes up into this little knuckle and then down. And so this is actually sitting flat in the tillering tree, even though it looks like there's a really wide gap over here versus this here. But I will say that I need a little more bend right here. I've been working on what was kind of turning into a hinge here, and by thinning out the tip and doing a lot of work taking out material here, I've kind of negated that to some degree. You can still see that it's bending more there than it should, or more like it's not bending enough right in here like it should. Whereas the other side really seems to be bending pretty well along its length. So that's just kind of where we're at in the tillering process. I'm going to go ahead and do a little more work here. Alright, here's our tiller on this little guy before I put him on the tillering tree. The way this is set is there's quite a crook in the original stave right there, and so it's giving an appearance of a weaker upper limb, when in fact this is quite reflexed and then deflexed. So I'm feeling my way through the tiller right now, but the limbs are bending evenly. We've gotten that far, so I'm going to take it out to the tillering tree, exercise it a little bit, kind of figure out what kind of draw length and weight we're sitting at, and then I'll bring it back to the garage. I'm taking a ton of set on this bow. I've dried it out now for 2 days, and I think really what's going on here is it's just taking a lot of string follow. So I don't think it's the moisture in the wood, because it's still very springy, but it is taking a fair amount of set for what that's worth. So I had this out on the tillering tree and have worked them in a little bit more, done some more tillering. on this lower limb. This has been designated as my lower limb. There's the top. But kind of getting a good bend on both sides, it looks like to me. Not paying attention to all the wiggles that are in there, so I've got some knots and whatnot that I'm working around, but the bend is pretty much there. At last check, pulling like 20 pounds at 18 inches. So kind of working on some of the weight mitigation on this. It's pulled right now to 12 inches, so getting a good look at that tiller. And really just gonna bring this guy home. I mean, I'm just a couple fine tillering installments away. So really at the peaking and tweaking stage at this point. I've already narrowed the tips and got good tracking through the grip on the strings. So right near the end. Okay guys, so this is how it finished out. And you can kind of see the gentle sweep on both of those limbs that kind of give it the look of like a propellered tiller when it's done. Belly side all done, smoothed out, at least tillered. So this is not, this only had a scraper taken to it with the exception of the tips, which I've kind of taken down to give kind of that finished look. And you can see that it took quite a bit of string follow. I'm taking probably an inch a set on this particular bow. So let's see here, get her strung up so you can see what she looks like. Now, finished at 25 pounds at 22 inches. So this bow is for the oldest of the boys up the block. And you can see that I've got a little wider gap here because of that little crook in the stave, that rest, but still a really great, you know, good tiller on it, and is ready to go.